Sure, just give me a second here.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm a developer at Cornell University, and I'm building our AI platform out right now. And so we're just sort of probably going to be like we're using like um, N8N and a few other products like Light LLM to set up like sort of central access to MCPs and stuff that we make. So sort of trying to see what else is going on in the MCP area.
Awesome. All right. Maybe we could get started here. Just dive right in. So for me, I'm Dylan. Me and Michael are co-founders at Worldwide. We've been doing these weekly, just trying to like test some tech. Maybe either we don't know or we've worked with a little bit. Just like build something quickly so we can demo it weekly, week after week. Learn new things, but also show people who maybe haven't worked with them or have worked a little bit how they work and just keep the momentum going. For today, I put together a little demo of mostly using Claude Desktop to kind of glue together two different MCPs, and then I also built like in Python just how I could encapsulate that in Python if you wanted to be an actual agent. So we'll start with the demos. I'll start talking about the MCPs I'm going to use, what I'm going to try to do with them, how I set them up. We'll show that off, and then in the end, yeah, we'll try to run the Python script. All right. So, first off, like first thing maybe is when I was thinking of what I was going to do, I just like the Anthropic has this repo model context protocol where they provide a big list of all the different MCPs that are supported. Some are community built, some are official, some are both. Like I think GitHub started as a community and then they actually took over and built their own. So what I wanted to do today is like maybe a little context. When Michael and I first started building together, the first thing we built was trying to take a GitHub repo, clone it, and using an LLM find the most interesting files. From those files, can we find like what are the data structures, what are the algorithms on those data structures, and what are the entry points, and then generate some documentation around those files. So what I wanted to see was like how if I just tried to one shot with like take a GitHub MCP and then the Notion MCP, like can I just kind of one shot generating documentation like that? I didn't expect it to be as good, but just see what I could do. Obviously, it's not as integral as that, but it is able to like read the repo, generate some documentation, and push to Notion. So I'll show that off now. If anyone saw the last call, I just had like a calculator and file system that were all locally. So with this time, I really wanted to use like the HTTP, use someone else's server that I hadn't built myself or that isn't run locally. So like yeah, I have GitHub here, I have Notion. You have to have API keys for these. I don't know, like I can kind of show how I did that for maybe for GitHub. For Notion, it's pretty easy. You can just come in like here, connections, and I have my like this is a token that I have. You can add different connections if you want, and you get a token when you create that you can add. You can add here. Really, I add it here. I just did this so I don't want to reveal my tokens. And then GitHub is very similar. If you go to GitHub, there's just a setting for developers, personal API keys, and you can get that API key. So yeah, I'll show off on Claude Desktop. Maybe I'll start with not necessarily my repo just to show, but we could say like let me try this. Using GitHub MCP, can you pull the README for the Linux repo? Let me update that. Torvalds Linux. And it's pretty nice. Again, I showed this off last time. Usually when you run these, it'll ask permission. Let me stop this. it'll ask permission. But since I've already allowed it every time, it just works here. But normally it's kind of a pain when you first run because there's a bunch of tools under the hood and it'll ask permission for each one. Okay. So it can confirm that it can actually read file contents. So what I want to do is I have a repo that I built years ago. I think I did this. Yeah, last commit was 3 years ago, but I actually wrote this in like 2019. And it was like at the time, Nix and reproducible builds were really big. So I wanted to build a build system similar to that in Python. So what I wanted to do was see like, I think this may be public, but see if I give it one of my repos, can it actually generate some documentation for it? So here's the repo. It's Python, pretty simple, just a few like you can describe what the software is, provide it like the tarball, and then it will run through, extract the tarball, compile it, and install it, just like Nix or a build system if you used one of those before. So let me maybe just start a new chat here, and I'll say, using the GitHub MCP, can you pull the repo from my GitHub and generate a document explaining what it does, core data structures, how to use it, and how to get started working on the code base? No, there you go. And I'll show this in code in a second, but it's interesting like you see it failed at first and then it retried and now it's like walking through all these different I don't know how they do it on Cloud Desktop. On the Python side, I have to set a limit, which can kind of be a limit. Like I can say 5, 10, because they say if you don't, then it could possibly run infinitely. I don't know what their limit is, but like each of these jobs is a job in a flow that it's doing behind the hood, and you have to set a limit of those. So like this is probably better than what mine's doing in Python. Yes. 1 second, I will share the GitHub link. This is better than what mine does in Python. I think because I'm limiting it to like maybe 10, 5 or 10 jobs each. So just something to keep in mind that they probably have some either good way of determining it or they just have a really high limit. And yes, I will share the GitHub link right now. To the MCP server. Yes. Yeah, I'll share both. I'll share both this big list and the actual GitHub one. No, wrong one. And then I think there's actually two GitHub. There's still one that's community built, I think. Yeah, actually maybe it's archived now. There's a community one, and then I have an official. Make sure this is the official one. Yeah, there we go. All right. Okay. And then over here, see, it did an okay job. Maybe I could refine it and ask it like, can you add some code? Maybe I could just try to. Well, no, it has it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so this is really good. This is actually a lot better than the one that I did yesterday. So this is really nice. What I want to do now is see, can we actually deploy this to a Notion page? So I have the one I showed off here. I have this Git manuals. The one of the limits of Notion is you attach your API key to a single page, and everything under that page it'll have access to, but I can't like give it a top level Notion and just say like create pages from nothing. So it has to be here. So what I'll do is say. Can you now take this page and deploy it to Notion as a new page, formatting it nicely so that it works with the Notion API and looks good on the Notion side? See what it does. I didn't actually tell it which page should be the parent, so I think it might fail. Yeah, there we go. Oh, I found it actually. Let's come over here and see. Yep, see, here we go. Nice. Yeah, I think one failure I've had both here and on the code side is that it just doesn't look nice. And I know that like that's one bottleneck. I'm sure there's ways to maybe massage prompts and add more and more prompts to get it to do that. But like if I'm just writing the code, I know how to do all this in Notion to make it look like uh, this. Don't know how to get the prompt to actually do what I would do myself. Yeah, even in code. Maybe while I'm waiting on that, I could also do the Notion, post the Notion, a link to Notion as well, just in case. All right. So it's not great, but I think as an overview, when we were doing this by hand in code, we had a lot like we had like sub pages which would list like all the different things and even things like prerequisite knowledge. I think I didn't prompt for that, but it would like almost be a way to build you up so that you could then work on this. This is more just almost like a man page if anyone's familiar with those, but it's still pretty nice and it did deploy to Notion. So all in all, like it works pretty nice as glue, as for gluing different services together. Again, with the caveat that it's AI driven, so sometimes it has a mind. It like almost literally has a mind of its own. So the last thing I wanted to show off is that works if you just want to, like, if you just want to add a bunch of MCP servers and have like nice workflows, AI driven workflows that you are prompting as you work and as you use something like Claude, that works nicely. But if you actually want to build agents, that's pretty simple also. Like here, I'm using LangChain, and if I like I showed you this config earlier where I have GitHub and Notion. Now LangChain has like they have MCP support, so you can do pretty much the same configuration. Ignore the red squigglies because that's typing issues, but just one-on-one, you take well almost one-to-one. So you take the exact same configuration. The only thing is like you have to add this transport. I think in Claude it automatically infers that. So one thing like MCP is supposed to be a standard protocol, but yet every time I use a different service with it, there's little differences. So I don't think it's as standardized as they're hoping yet. Anyway, you can add the services just like you do there. Add your model. Pick which model you want. So right here, I'm using 4.1 Mini. I tried with 4.0. I tried with actually with Claude 3.7 Sonnet here, and neither one was great. It actually like all of them work with GitHub. No, neither of those two would work with Notion, and Claude actually was really, really slow. Like it kept, I don't know, it kept like thinking too long when trying to run the GitHub even. So 4.1 seems to work nicely. It's still hit or miss on the actual deployment side. I got it. It worked last time I ran it, but we'll see if it works again. And then like again, like I have memory here, so there should be context between them. That's still not great, so I'm having to like the GitHub analysis works, but I need to store that in a variable to actually pass it here because otherwise it kept creating the page and then it would just say like analysis or something. It wouldn't actually know what I wanted it to post. So I'm posting the analysis here. Another thing when prompting is I can't do the convert like in Claude, I can just ask it, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Here, that does not work. It keeps getting errors. So I have to actually give it like the traditional like when agents first came out, it was like this. I have to give like an ordered list of steps to take. If I don't do that, I get a ton of errors, even on the GitHub side. So prompts aren't as like aren't as it's not as prompt friendly, I guess, as something like Claude Desktop is. Still, it manages to find a list of files, determine key data structures or program flow, generate the document, and then in a second step, like it locates the page, creates a new page, and then will push the analysis. The last time I checked, the analysis was both even worse than what we just saw, and the formatting was even worse. But it's a start. I mean, I did this in like not even 20 minutes, so it's a start of something that would probably like if I kept massaging it, would probably get a lot better. And like there's almost no code here. It's pretty much all prompts. So we'll run it and see how well it did. Last time it ran successfully, but we'll see how well it does. Looks like it's finding definitely found all the important files. Yeah, now it's onto the Notion side. Let's see, it's hitting errors. We'll see how well. Looks like it found the Git manual. Looks like it's creating the page. Yep, created the page. Here's the black swan. Here's where it's been failing 50% of the time. It'll try to like it's not good at the Notion blocks. For some reason, Claude Desktop is, but using LangChain, it's not. So like half the time it'll get it right, half the time it keeps failing on the API side. So we'll see if the retries get it to work. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So it worked. It looks pretty bad, but it actually managed to push. And again, in like 20 minutes of working. So all in all, it's pretty easy to work with MCP both on the Claude side, but even on the code side, it's still not as seamless as it is using Claude, but it's getting easier. And yeah, it's really nice to not have to define tools or APIs for all these different things. They just already exist. Yeah. And that's my demo. So we can open it up for QA or yeah, if people won't have anything they want to ask or talk about. Yeah. No, I have the same as you. I think there's a lot of developer hype around it. And even when you look at the list, a lot of it like I mean, I'm in tech, so most of the time what I see is like other tech people. I can imagine things like Notion could be really handy, but then again, I had way more like maybe it's because it's mostly developers, I had way more trouble with the Notion MCP where GitHub just worked. So I'm in agreement. I think it's still pretty early and that's probably why, but at the moment it's mostly just developers building the MCPs and I don't see a lot of people using them in production or like actual business workflows. I haven't heard of that 11 AI. No, do you mean 11 Labs? Yeah, I haven't actually used their MCP.
Hey guys, it's Nona. How are you? Thank you. It was really interesting. I have an AI powered professional learning platform, and I was thinking of expanding it to include an AI agent. I'm just wondering what you guys do at Worldwide Studios. You're Cornell grads, like what? And I thought this was going to be like attaching RAG files and running an agent off that, but this is something different. Could you just? I'm not a programmer. I'm a CEO founder type.
Sure.
So could you just explain to me what you guys do and then how this is different than like a RAG agent kind of, pre-built interface with the models. We currently use Claude Sonnet 4.0.
I see. Okay, so what we do is we're ed tech, so we train people to build, we teach people to build with AIs and help them learn how to use and deploy them. And we do like a lot of coaching while also slowly building out an ed tech platform. For like the difference, I think these are like kind of totally different. So RAG is more like for your knowledge base. If you have a bunch of documents like PDFs or something internal to your business, you can use RAG to inject relevant aspects of those documents into the prompt, into the LLM, like the prompt, so that the output can work with it. For MCP, it's more like a way of wrapping traditional services. Like I know you say not a programmer, but if you know, like if you ever use APIs or anything like that, like most services have an API right now. Like every single web service you have has an API, so programmers can encode call it. I think login with Google uses a Google API, and MCPs are just a way of wrapping that. So so you can like put one to an LLM and then they expose endpoints just like an API does, but they'll expose what those endpoints do for tool use. And tool use is an integral part of agents. They like based on a prompt, they'll see like an action they need to do, like send an email. In the case of like the Gmail API, you can say like I want to send an email and an MCP before you would have to tell like your agent like here's the Google API, here are the endpoints you need to call to send an email. Where now in theory Google could provide you like an MCP version of their API and it'll say like here's the tools we have, here's what they do. One of them is send email. And so on the developer side, on the person building the agent, you don't have to do any of that. You just do this little configuration here. Like this is GitHub, but in theory, this could be like Google, and you post their MCP URL, and then it would pull in all of the tools that Google allows, and it saves a lot of work on the dev side. Basically, it's just a standard way of doing agent tool use, compared to RAG is I don't want to say totally different, but two different aspects of building agents.
And then you guys said what kind of ed tech platform? I also have an ed tech application. What do you guys do?
On the platform side, so we try to condense learning paths. So like some manual, some like AI generated that like think whatever you want to learn. If you want to learn to work with like GitHub, there's a series of like the end goal is working with GitHub, and then there's a series of dependencies required to know how to use GitHub. And so we like our platform tries to map those as trees, like think Skyrim or Oblivion or something, how they have like these, yeah, here you go. How they have these skill trees. We attempt to map knowledge as these skill trees.
Cool. I love the idea of skill. So our mission is to boost student engagement. So we develop educator skills in grades 3 to 12 with how to plan and design lessons that are more engaging for students that aren't just lecture and worksheets, but are actually like engaging and fun and active. And so we working with Teachers College at Columbia University with a knowledge base of like 1,000 evidence-based instructional strategies that we then use generative AI to apply to the next lesson. So you could say, I want a 15-minute really engaging activity using, a virtual scavenger hunt or whatever it is, and it'll wrap an activity around your standard or whatever you're teaching with the strategy. But we're looking to incorporate generative AI. So I wasn't sure if you guys were available as, for service providers or you're just building out your own thing.
That depends on the server. Like I said, so the platform is one thing we do, and we do a lot of like consulting and coaching and stuff on the side. So it depends on what services you need, but that's something we could probably talk about in via email or something like that.
Terrific.
Yeah, awesome.
Hi guys, thank you for the amazing workshop. I had a question. I am a developer myself and I'm exploring ideas in the MCP space, what to build next.
Mhm.
And funnily enough, like even I have like a edtech platform, but like as a side project. And but in my exploration of MCP, I was wondering like what is the way forward? Like, would each of the companies like GitHub have their own MCP, or would the community take charge of creating MCPs for Notion and things like that? And the context is that there's this platform like Smithery and Glama, which are like building MCP marketplaces. So how do you see that space evolve over time?
Yeah, I think I would say that depends. Like even when doing this, it seems like Claude is really the main. Like Claude has really good support, and other ones are maybe hesitant, maybe because it's not theirs. They're being like sore losers about it or something. But because it's not their standard, other ones are slower to adopt. But I think if we see good like big adoption, then I do think you'll probably see just like everyone has a REST API right now. I think everyone will probably have an MCP because it's really easy to wrap those REST APIs in an MCP. So I mean, like, it's one developer can do that in a fraction of their time. So I don't see why they wouldn't do that if it takes off. As to the marketplaces, I think that's a good idea. Like right now, it's pretty painful to like you see, I just have to go to this big GitHub document, find the ones I want, and then manually add it. I don't know. Third party providers seem weird, at least to the end users. Maybe for developers, I see that working where I could just like here on, I don't know if I'm still sharing my screen, but if you just imagine my configuration where I have to add every service I want, I could just add the one service and then I can go into them and add which ones I want to call. I could see that. But I think to the end user, like I imagine Claude or Anthropic having their like the marketplace there, on them. If it's for people using the chatbot to be able to use it, I can't imagine they would want to give that up to a third party.
Got it. And is there any support for deep linking? As in, like, if I click a link on my web, can it open my Claude desktop and add the MCP for me, or is it all manual right now?
I think it's all manual. If I have not seen any that allow me to do that, I've had to add them and it's not even like it's like I have to manually edit a JSON file in Claude Desktop.
Got it. And Claude desktop is the most popular MCP client, right now. And
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's the only one I have that works. I'm using Cursor here and even trying like Cursor in theory has it, but there was like a bug when I tried to do it, so it wouldn't even load any tools from MCP. So I don't think like I don't actually use the ChatGPT desktop app, but I don't know if they even have support yet for adding MCPs. I'm not sure of that.
got it. And you are basically looking at GitHub for the official MCP, you know, implementations, and
Mhm.
then these emerging marketplaces have like the trust factor. How would they gain the trust, right?
Yeah.
And that brings me to my other question, which is like, why are people so concerned about security in the MCP world? Like, I've been reading a lot of articles, people being like concerned about it. So how does that work?
Um, yeah, I haven't seen those articles, but I can imagine like on the trust side of things, I know it requires me like putting my API key. If I want to interact with GitHub or Notion, I have to give them my API key, which gives like total access to everything. I know a lot of people are pushing for like finance MCPs and stuff like that, so I can imagine being very, very hesitant to give some third party an API key that gives them control over like your bank account or something.
Got it. So the GitHub, so you connected to MCP servers right now. The GitHub one was hosted by GitHub itself, right? So the
Yes.
MCP server was on GitHub, and the Notion one was the community version, right? So
Um, Maybe. I don't, I'd have to actually look if the Notion was the community. I think they both started as community and then GitHub at least became official. Notion may still be community. I could tell you for sure right here. No, Notion is official. At least it's
okay,
marked as official here. Yeah.
got it. So official ones are safe because your API keys are going to the kind of like mothership, not anywhere else.
Yeah, and I think the yes, but also because I'm handling it myself and I'm like sending directly to it's safe. But I think if there was a third party involved, like even like places get hacked every day, and so like I think people are more and more hesitant to expose data to third parties that they don't have a lot of trust in.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. All right. If there's no other questions, we're at time. So thanks everyone for joining, and we can hop.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for joining.